We welcome you again to our ongoing discussion of the New Testament, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I'm Brent Topp from the Faculty of Religious Education at Brigham Young University, and joining me today are other members of the religion faculty. On my far left is Professor Jeffrey Marsh. Next to Brother Marsh is Brother Ray Huntington. Next to Brother Huntington is Professor Kelly Ogden, all from the Department of Ancient Scripture. Well, brethren, we're going to pick up our story today, talking about Mark chapter 6 particularly, and deal with an event that is going to set the stage for a very important historical event that will serve as the backdrop for one of the most important doctrinal teachings that we have in the New Testament. And so in Mark chapter 6, we see that John the Baptist is in prison. Now, you remember we already talked about that earlier, that he had been in prison, and when Jesus learned that his cousin John was in prison, he sent angels to support him and to strengthen him. Now, where is he in prison? Do we know?
Not mentioned in the New Testament account itself, but Josephus mentions he's in a fortress called Machaerus. Some know Masada, are acquainted with where Masada is, on the west side of the Dead Sea, but just on the east side, opposite, is another of the numerous palace fortresses that Herod built all over the land, and that's apparently which is part of Herod Antipas's domain, Galilee and Perea.
And who is Herod Antipas? Because in Mark 6 it says it was Herod's birthday, and so who is this Herod Antipas, and why has he got John in prison?
Herod Antipas is the son of Herod the Great, and at the death of Herod the Great, his will stipulated that parts of the territory of the Holy Land be divided up and ruled by his sons. And Herod Antipas...
He actually had about 10 different wills, and at the time of his death, right when he died, that particular one went into effect.
That was the
well, not all of his sons survived to be able to inherit any of the land, too. So.
But this particular son was given the territory of the Galilee, and as Kelly pointed out, part of that territory slipped across the Jordan River to the east side and down across the eastern side of the Dead Sea, where Machaerus is located.
So today it would be in modern-day Jordan.
Part of it.
Okay.
That term doesn't usually show up right in our New Testament account. It is Perea is beyond Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay. The English word's beyond Jordan. Whenever it says that in our gospel accounts, it's talking about that region. So that's where he is.
All right, well, let's look at the story. I think every reader of the New Testament is probably familiar with the story, but what's going on here about, in fact, why has Herod imprisoned John? Why is he so upset with John, and why do we even get to this point where his daughter could make such a gruesome request?
Well, he married his brother's wife, which, according to the law of Moses at the time, was an illegal marriage, and John the Baptist preached that and publicly called him on it.
Yeah, so the very specific reason why he hates John is because he's calling his own wickedness, his own sinfulness into question.
He doesn't hate John. It says Herod feared John. He was a just man. This is 6:20 in Mark, and a holy, and observed him. The JST there says he knew he was a holy man, and he feared God and observed to worship him. So he's actually very respectful toward this prophet, but of course nobody likes hearing about their sins.
That's right.
You know, another issue here too is Herod the Great was an extremely unpopular ruler, and particularly with his Jewish subjects, and his son is following in his footsteps, extremely unpopular. And, ruling in Galilee, and I think Kelly will agree with this, that was probably one of the more difficult places to rule. The Galileans were extremely rebellious.
Why?
Well, they were zealots in the sense for nationalism. They wanted the Romans out. Herod Antipas ruled under Rome's authority. And he's got a problem here, and that is you have a man who's extremely popular, and that's John the Baptist with the common folk. And he's raising issues about Herod Antipas.
Personally.
Yeah, and that's creating more animosity towards this man. And his wife that he's married, they're both taking the heat. They don't like it. And it's going to be easier to get rid of John than to have him out there stirring the people up.
You know, this is an interesting case, too, where a politician doesn't follow through with his heart and knows what's right, what ought to be done, but he caves. He gives in to the pressures. He gives in to the family. And as you pointed out, he was a good man with a good heart, but he let go. He let go of the goodness.
Well, he set himself up for the situation to giving her the opportunity to ask for anything she wanted.
Right.
Not smart.
Yeah, well, and it was, as you point out, caving into family pressure, but they want, Herodias wants him gone. And Herod has the political pressure, and so I said hate, but he certainly would like to eliminate him from he's the burr under the saddle, to use the Western metaphor there. Yeah. And so let's look as we get down here, is that when the daughter dances, and we're all familiar with the story, and he grants the request. Jeff, why don't you pick up with verse 25? Let's read that.
And she came in straightway with haste unto the king, and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in a charger the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceeding sorry, yet for his oath's sake...
Now let's stop there for a second. So he was sorry that he would have to do it, and I think he's appalled that his daughter would ask for such a thing. What does that phrase there mean, for his oath's sake? Why couldn't we say, that we all do as parents to our children, no, what you're asking for is not right. Think of something else. I'll take you to buy candy instead. What does that phrase mean, but for thy oath's sake?
Well, it's another, like somebody mentioned a minute ago, he set himself up, he gave an oath, whatever you want, and hadn't thought clearly through maybe some of the implications of the promise. But now he's in the spotlight, he's made a promise, and he's got to follow through with it.
Okay? And under the law of Moses, if he has any form of devotion whatsoever, when you make an oath, you have to keep that oath. That is your word in that regard.
Of course, he's not too concerned about the law of Moses.
That's what I was going to say. He's not.
There's a higher law, thou shalt not kill, that he says.
He's not really probably
not a concern for him.
Yeah, okay. All right, keep reading. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. Yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes which sat with him, he would not reject her.
See that second phrase. The oath's sake was one, but the political pressure is seen in that next phrase.
And immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought, and he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb.
Okay, so here we are. John has been killed, and the disciples feel terrible about it as well, and they take to bury his body. Now look at verse 30. And we begin to set the stage for not only the miracle, but some important teachings that Jesus is going to see. So in verse 30, it said, and the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place. Now that phrase, desert place, is somewhat problematic, so we've got to look at that. So Kelly, you are as familiar with as anybody with that place. Where is that place, and what's wrong with the word desert place?